the holiday favorite, A Christmas Celtic Sojourn, is back for its 19th year, starting next week. Drawing on Celtic, pagan, and Christian traditions, the show features lively dancing set to the music of fiddles, bass, accordion, and harp, among other instruments. Performances begin next week in Rockport before a 5-show run in Boston with virtual performances for audiences at home as well. Here to give us a preview is Maeve Gilchrist, the harpist you just saw, who returns this year as co-music director, and Brian O'Donovan, the show's creator and longtime host of the weekly radio program behind it, A Celtic Sojourn, produced right here at GBH. Welcome to both of you. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be with you. Thanks for having us.
Brian, first of all, congratulations on getting back into the theater. Talk to me a little bit about what you did last year and what you're planning on doing this year.
Well, last year, so it was particularly difficult last year because, of course, none of us could do anything. We couldn't get to the theater. We couldn't gather. And what we decided to do with the musicians and the staff is to put together something really special for folks who are going to be trapped at home, essentially. So we set out to create a virtual, which was complicated, yes, because it meant that we had to quarantine altogether up in Rockport, Massachusetts, and we did so. It turned out to be a really blissful time. I think Maeve will agree, because it was at the darkest time of the pandemic. But we tested regularly and basically decided to quarantine. We couldn't meet anybody else. My own wife, who was often in the show, couldn't even say hi to us closer than being on the porch where she dropped off some food. So it was a singular experience, facilitated largely by our friends at Rockport Music, who gave us the beautiful theatre there, completely free of anybody else going in or out, so we could remain pristine and quarantined. And we produced something that we were very, very proud of, actually, and surprised us in terms of its impact. So happy with what happened last year.
And this year, Maeve, you're out and about again, doing shows both for folks at home and in person, following COVID protocols all along the way. You know, this music to me is perfect to both capture the joys and sorrows of this time of year generally. Talk about your selections. How did you put the show together?
Well, you're right that it is so joyful to be here. It was great to do it last year remotely. It was kind of a temporary balm, but this show is really about bringing people together, about bringing these musicians coming from a shared tradition together and bringing the audience in to meet with the musicians. It's not just about the music. It's about the shared experience of poetry, emotion, music, song and dance, and the coming together of people from all kinds of different backgrounds. So we're bringing together a host of fantastic musicians. I just saw Jenna Moynihan there on the fiddle, a couple of fiddle players, Katie McNally as well from the Boston fiddle tradition. Most of them coming from different Celtic backgrounds. So there'll be jigs, there'll be reels, and there's also going to be some great vocals. We've got Moira Smiley on lead vocals and the vocal quartet Windborne, bringing their very unique blend of harmonies. So it's going to be fantastic.
I'm so excited. And Brian, I know that this has been a terrible time for all of us in many ways, but there's also always ways to find gifts. The expanded audience that you're able to reach, which started last year with the virtual concerts and expanding into this year, it must be exciting to reach folks who maybe otherwise wouldn't have gone or are just getting to know you and your Celtic Sojourn shows.
Well, I think it is so. What's the old adage that my mother was fond of saying? It's an ill wind indeed that blows no good. And essentially the pandemic forced us to do something that we wouldn't have done otherwise, and that's to create this virtual option. So we think it's going to be something that's going to be an option going forward. And this year we're doing it from the theatre, really recording in very high quality the proceedings on the stage, so that if folks, let's be realistic about it. So we thought that we all would be much more relaxed about going to indoor spaces and theatre spaces. That just simply is not the case. And we know that some folks, even though we have vax requirements and mask mandates, etc., are still going to be more comfortable checking in with us from the safety of their own home. And we are facilitating that this year and looking forward to continuing to build on that audience. Some 6,700 households joined us last year for our virtual program, and we think it's even going to go up from that this year.
Maeve, talk a little bit about being an artist and a performer in this period. You know, it must be so difficult to keep the creative juices going, to work together, to perform together. How are you doing it? What's your secret sauce for staying positive and staying creative?
Oh gosh, what's my secret sauce? I mean, I think love of what I do. You know, it's sustenance to me in the hard times. This year feels a little different to last. I mean, last year was, I think, as an artist, more than anything, it was lonely because we weren't able to have that constant conversation with other artists. That is really why we do this thing. This year is kind of slowly but steadily amping up again with all these protocols in place. So on one hand, it's never easy. You never know how it's going to go exactly. But it's incredible how elastic we as an artistic community have been. And I think that elasticity finds its ways into our creative output as well. So if nothing else, the music that we're making this year will be different from any other time.
And Brian, again, it also rises to the occasion. It's a time when I think we need this more than ever before. It must be so rewarding to be able to deliver it.
It really is, you know, what we talked about to artists is actually an extraordinary reversal of what it was back in March of 2019, where artists and all of us involved in theatre of any description, live music, said it was our responsibility to go home and to keep people safe and to go dark, essentially, the buildings and the artistic efforts that were focused around live music. This time, when I call the artists to participate, everybody feels a responsibility to come back in as safe an environment as possible. But we feel it's our responsibility. Believe me, I'd be lying if I told you it isn't more difficult this year than any other year any of us have been involved with anything. It really is. And in some ways, it would be easier for us to be at home. However, it's our responsibility as artists to bring a sense of our humanity back to real time and to do it as safely as possible, but nonetheless to remind people of the humanity that somehow we were challenged to remember during the darkest times of the pandemic.
And you do that so well, and I appreciate both of you. Brian O'Donovan, Maeve Gilchrist, thank you so much for joining me, and have a happy holiday. I look forward to watching you. I'll be watching from the couch. Thanks so much for joining us.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.